that when you're gonna start it.
Very good idea. Well, we've already agreed not to say anything inappropriate, so.
I hope you did.
Oh dear, here we go.
Just turn.
Sounds like our quorum just came in the door. Yep.
Hi, Justin.
Howdy, folks.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll call to order February 10th, 2018. Tim?
Here.
Justin?
Here.
And Brad?
Here.
Did we review the agenda? Any additions or changes?
Would you approve the agenda as written? I would like to, well, I can bring it up at the bottom. It doesn't matter. Never mind.
You don't need any preparation or thought about whatever it is? Okay. Well, and I'll report on the highway patrol car at my comments, so. All right. So do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Appropriation ordinance 1471. Oh, that's right. Tim?
Do we get a motion?
Wait a minute. No, we're down here in the ordinance, aren't we?
No, we're on.
How about this, Molly? I'll move to approve.
I guess I was sitting there thinking, I read the minutes and I was happy with them. Well, you know, I can't make a motion on that.
I too am happy. On the second.
All in favor?
Yes.
I'll try and get my head on that.
Tim votes yes. That's
Well,
ordinance.
that one is minutes, so.
That was minutes.
Oh, that was
That was
minutes.
minutes. Going back to minutes.
I made my motion for the appropriations.
All right, we'll go back then. You need a motion to
Holy
approve.
cow, we're all just combined.
Yeah. Well, you see, and see, that's my fault because he's trying to make me look good. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. All right, appropriation ordinance 1471.
Okay.
Should we stop now or start again or what?
You didn't have an actual motion for the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and he seconded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor? We're all
Oh,
for it.
Okay.
Sure.
It's fine.
1,
Yeah,
2,
yeah.
3,
I'll go
take a
back and sign
breath.
checks.
Now you're on appropriation.
Yeah, I know. I'm just giving them a chance to look at it, make sure they looked at it. All right, Tim, on the ordinances. 1471.
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Brad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Do you have any comments or concerns from the public? Thank you. Mike, why don't you give your report?
Everything I need to address is on the city business.
All right. Okay, Tiffany?
The only thing I have, and I guess I could have made this its own thing on the agenda, but each of you guys have a packet from Chris Colligan. I did forward this on to Justin. He kind of looked it over. Basically, it is he's saying that 325 is going to get us maintenance on the server for 2020. Managed server package, and then he goes through the whole spiel of what all that entails. But yeah. So I don't know if that's something we.
I thought it seemed reasonable, and just for record, what are we paying now? Are we paying less, or is this a price increase?
I
Or?
think so. I should have gone back and looked. I think when we did like the initial thing, did that cover?
I
Maybe
think
that was
part of
just
it
a
was
year.
under warranty as far as
Oh,
the first
yeah.
server package.
Okay.
And then now this is, because he's had to manually install updates. He was explaining that to me because he works for the KBI now too, and they've got like 300 servers. They've had to go through and do that, which takes a lot of time. He had to go back in. There's been some manual patches he's had to go in and do. It's not just like install an update and restart. So there's been some of that, but the managed stuff, everything's listed out there as far as all the live management basically, which is the app that's installed on there, does that too. Reports any hardware problems, stuff like that for him to address. But that is a monthly fee on both of those. The workstations are $25 a month and then the server's $250
Yeah.
a month for a total of $325.
What do we use per month? I mean, what, I guess what do we get for this each month? Is it just like an insurance policy that
Yeah,
in
I
case something
think
goes
so.
wrong?
That's how I take it. I could be wrong.
And
I'm
also,
not
That
very
among other
technical
things,
stuff.
but-
well, he also monitors things too. I know when I have problems with mine, he knows it before I do.
Well, yeah. When I get here in the mornings, every now and then he'll be like, "Hey, I saw your server was down," and then I'm like, "Oh yeah," I pull up my computer and I'm like, "Yep, it's not up," and then he'll do whatever. So.
Does he
Stuff
do,
like that.
he does yours in Mill too?
mhm.
And that
Yeah.
covers
If
a
he
lot of
can.
the hourly stuff too, I think, as far as that goes, which he's been really fair on that. I mean,
Yeah.
there's times when we were outside of that insurance policy, if we having to log in and do something, he'll send us a $2.70 bill for the time it took
Right.
him to do it. I mean, he's been really good about that, but I think
Yeah.
this includes all of that.
Yeah.
It's been good about answering questions too, outside
Yes,
of, I
for
mean,
free.
yeah,
Yeah.
very detailed answers. And
Well, when the phones
I've been
went,
impressed.
when the
with
phones and stuff went down 2 weeks ago and everybody was having problems, I called him and he was able to, well, and then the server went down.
Yeah, which I
Yeah.
figured out, but yeah.
And so he said that, well, he was able to explain to me what went wrong. And so then I knew that there were just different customers in town here that were having problems. And CenturyLink did it. They sent a signal through that messed things up.
I move that we accept the bid.
A second.
All in favor?
I'm not-
All opposed?
I'm not saying.
And Brett's abstaining.
That's all I have. Oh, actually, sorry. One more thing. I did forget. Update. We did get the people that are living in the station served.
That's what I was gonna ask.
They will be here for court February 20th, hopefully. If not,
Yeah, and you talked to our new judge.
yes.
Okay.
And he knows, and he said we're good to go.
All right, well, I'm good to go. So
Okay.
it's gonna be a party.
Okay.
What was the date?
February 20th.
Here, February 20th, 4:00.
And the other one you were serving by certified mail
Yeah,
due to dogs.
because yeah,
Duty dogs?
Due
yeah,
to dogs.
do two dogs. Which-
Dogs are duty dogs.
I haven't gotten the thing back
Okay,
yet,
so
so
that-
pending she gets it in time.
Osborne.
Osborne. Make sure I get the certified mail back in time for her to be here, but she's kind of on the docket, I guess.
Okay,
And now that's it.
all right. Okay, then let's move on to, any requests for purchases or work orders? No? Mike, when were you gonna do yours?
Right
Council
now,
business? Okay,
rattle them off. I'll go
all
for
right.
it. Bank CDs. Start with that one. I'm bringing that up. We've been looking at some things and I've been talking to the bank about it. All of our CDs are currently in 6-month or 30-day or 31-day CDs. We're currently earning, the way it looks, between 0.5% and 0.8% interest. The advertised rates right now on renewal are showing 0.35 to 0.75%. If it were possible, the way things are going, in theory, on paper, for a 31-day note, you would almost have to pay the bank to hold your money. If the way it works out on paper, literally, that would not happen, I would hope. But you're basically paying for insurance on your money and paying them to keep your money, which is crazy. But what I wanted to talk to you about was moving all these to 5-year notes and maybe trying to negotiate a little bit as far as rates with the bank. Right now, that's right about 2% is what that would pay.
What was it? How much time frame?
5 years.
Thank you.
5 years.
5 years.
Why not?
I think the state law says you can only, the maximum amount you can invest idle funds in is for 3 years.
Okay.
I can check on that.
How
That's
would would we be potentially different than Lake Wabansie Improvement District on that?
Well, you might be,
Okay.
just because there's a, well, I'll say this, there's a limited series of investments the city can make, and there is a time limitation, and I'm remembering that 3 years is one of them, and how that breaks out. You know, as far as,
Mhm.
is there some special investment that's not a CD, I don't think, but I can take a look at that and finalize.
Does that count when typically a CD has a clause that,
It allows you to take it
forfeit
after,
like
yeah.
a quarter's worth of interest?
Yeah, and it's just the
Yeah.
interest. You're never forfeiting any of your actual
Yeah, it's
investment.
been so long since I
Yeah,
looked
so
at that.
that's what I was saying. I mean, if for some reason we needed it and it was tied up, we're just forfeiting a portion of the interest. We would never be paying a penalty that would get into our initial investment.
Yeah,
So,
that's
Chances
an
are we
important
probably
question.
still come out ahead if it's
Yeah.
0.3.
yeah, I mean, we haven't touched any of those for a long, long time. I mean, if we could have been making 2% rather than, or whatever, instead of 0.5%, I mean, that's substantial in a year's amount of time. I'm just looking forward at other things we could do and, maybe try to earmark some of that interest or something. But
Does it make sense to split a portion of that up so you've got maybe 2/3 of it in like a higher yield, longer term note, and then something else in a shorter term to make it more liquid, kind of?
I don't think I'd worry about liquidity at this point. I mean, it's possible. I mean, you guys think about that. I mean, it's you could split them up, I suppose, within funds. I mean, right now we currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different gas CDs. We have 1 CD for water and then 3 basically for general or pool funds, pool cash. I suppose you could split a little of that out. And the second part of doing this and moving this around, if that's something we want to do, I'm looking at capital improvements on the water plant this year, probably this spring if doable. Our turbidimeters, our online turbidimeters, which is the clarity of the water, which we have to monitor for EPA, for KDHE. We've got 3 of them out there. They are basically, they don't make them anymore. They are still under service. They don't know how long parts will be available. Hawk turbidimeters. Looking at the new replacements, they're the TU 5300 SC turbidimeters made by Hawk. They have 2 options. I believe the cheaper option would be best for us. The more expensive one, they're running about $2,850 a piece. We have 3 of them. The less expensive base model is about $2,050. So it would be 3 of those. I don't know that the more expensive ones would benefit us. It doesn't look like it. I need to do a little bit more research, but then service agreement, everything, which is a 1-year cost, which we would get some of this prorated back to us because we've already paid for the service agreement on the ones we have. But with the price of the turbidimeters, the service agreement included, and shipping, it's about $8,300 to replace those turbidimeters. Also, rolling into that is our backwash pump. I had that quoted in 2017 from Alexander Pump. That pump is not made, that pump head is not made new anymore, but they do exist. They can be refurbished. They go out, they get refurbished, epoxy coated, whatever. We are kind of restricted to that pump head, the way our room is set up in our pump building, where the pump stem comes out to the motor, the pump head, and then the piping that goes right back into the ground to go into the plant. We don't have really many options. on changing that completely to a different style without sawing out concrete, which is above our clear well, which is a huge tank in the ground and doing lots of weird stuff. That is a circa 1983 pump and motor on that. The longer we go and put it off, the more nervous it makes me, because if we can't backwash when we need to, I mean, we're at about 24 hours worth of supply and we're scrambling to backwash filters and get the plant back online. The bid for that in 17 was about $18,022. And I just round that to about 20. It's not cheap. That's why I've kind of put it off. We've done a lot of other capital improvements with chemical feed, stuff like that. We've cash flowed all of that out of our, basically our cash flow, what we make on the percentage from the water districts, what we make off of our sales, direct sales to customers in town. What I was going to suggest was pull about 32,000 out of that water CD if we were going to, and that's set there for capital improvements is why it's there, before we refinanced or did whatever at the time it became due. And we were going to do something if so happens you want to, and we can pull that out and then go ahead and stick it back in for the maximum amount of time, maximum interest we could. And earmark to do that for the improvements here that I just talked about. So we can kind of kick that can down the road to another meeting and pending some research, but wanted to kind
Well,
of.
I'm looking at it right now. It's 2 years actually. Savings deposits, demand deposits, time deposit, open account, certificates of deposit, or time certificates of deposit with maturities of not more than 2 years. That's 12-1675 subsection B2. So repurchase
That's a
agreements,
statute.
yeah. KSA 12-1675 B2. They have this is investment of vital funds. So there's also a number of other exceptions, and these get pretty complicated. So it's just, that would seem to me to be a straight CDs. There's a lot of other specialty funds here they're talking about, like the pooled investment fund, state municipal investment pool.
And that's like the operating checking cash pool fund, municipal checking type of deal.
Well, I think it's just a fund where they invest on behalf of the municipalities together. I don't know what they.
I think they actually do interim funding and stuff like that for interest, is what I've heard. I'm looking into that. I mean, try to figure out a way to make the most we can off of our idle funds and even our cash, if we could.
Yeah, I've never done it. There's repurchase agreements with banks. I don't know what those are. When we do those.
You know, obviously we have a lot of infrastructure to do. That's what we've been focusing on. That's what I'm focusing on here. You know, someday I'd love to build a new shop, and if it was feasible to even, you know, work at putting some down on that, you know, and maybe getting a lease agreement and then using some interest funding to transfer every year to make a shop payment, that would be awesome. Then our money's making a payment on something that we couldn't see feasible in the recent past, something like that. But just kind of a path and ideas. So
This CD that you're talking about for improvement, where'd that money come from? Do we add to it? How often? At what
we
rate?
don't. That money was deposited when Rural Water 8 or District 8 hooked on. That was part
And
of
we
the
haven't
hookup fee.
Added anything to our improvement. We don't have a spot where we put money each year for improvements.
No, that's all been just in our cash. And we've used a lot of that just on what we've done. I mean, you look at all the engineering and everything in the last 5 years out there. Like the big Zebra Mussel project, when we dug up the intakes, all that, which we came in about 50,000 under the engineering estimate, because we did most of that work ourselves. But that was 100,000 right there. So, I mean, that has been depleted, but we've done a lot. I mean, we've been dealing with something, and that looking forward to, which is a whole nother ball game getting into it. That's what I'm trying to work with the engineers, which is the next thing on the agenda with the sewer project, to figure out how to do that. I mean, bonding is great right now. They've actually just lengthened water. I believe you can actually bond out water projects or loans, even loan out SRF loans longer. I believe that went through or is going through or something.
Fresh or waste?
fresh. I think it was water they lengthened so you can stretch it out longer. What I don't like to do is build something with a life expectancy of, say, 25 years and get a loan or bond it out for 40 years, because that's the boat we're in. In the early 2000s, we did a plant upgrade, a plant addition, which is great. It was new. The circa 1983 stuff on the west side is still 1983 stuff. It's our Achilles heel, and it's what's going to bite us in the butt sometime. So I don't like that idea of just loaning something out way past its usable life. In my opinion, it's usable life. But yeah, it's favorable, stretch it out, lower payments, lower rates for everybody. That's the ultimate goal, but you have to be responsible when it comes to that. So you don't end up in a point where it's going, oh crap, we need to do this. We need to get a quick loan. We need to make our rates here to match that loan, which is our predicament with the sewer project with the CDBG, 600,000 out of the picture. Where do we go now? But we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So, but yeah, that's where that money came from. I know the amount. I have it. It's in the contract. It's accrued a fair amount of interest over the last 20 years or whatever it's been. Yeah, right about 20 years, probably close to it. Could have been more. I mean, depending on interest rates back and forth, but yeah, anything that fund has increased has been all interest. To my knowledge, we have never added to that fund any. We've always just kept everything in cash and water.
Well, the only thing I'm thinking is if we're going to take a large sum out of that, I feel like we should have some sort of a design to replace it.
Mhm. Absolutely. And Stephanie, I talked again today. We still need to get this rate study done for you guys to look at and look at our rates. I mean, our in-town rates, to make sure that we are sustainable in affording our share of the cost with the water treatment plant, the high service lines, the tanks and towers, stuff like that. I mean, that's all costs that are shared between the city and the 3 water districts. And then, of course, our in-town piping, that's all our responsibility. But we need to make sure that we're sustainable on that level, just like they have to as well, when our rates change every year to them. So our rates change every year to us too. We just don't get a printout of it. I mean, basically our cost per gallon is basically what theirs is. That's what it costs us to make water. Every year it changes, and then we charge this amount, but that hasn't been changed for a long time. So something to look at. But yeah, absolutely. A maintenance fund, something like that, with a scheduled transfer to that. I mean, the scheduled transfers to general, which we need to do. But yeah, planning ahead and scheduled maintenance, which when the whole wastewater debacle gets solved, hopefully we'll be looking at the water debacle and figure out what we need to have on hand and what we have to contribute for our share of whatever it may be to do that. But yeah, I don't know. Do you want Todd to double check on a little more funding, or have you already said everything you know?
There's always more that can be said. But that's the quick and dirty answer is 2 years. And
Yeah,
that's
dive into the
remember.
exceptions. I mean,
Yeah, you're talking then about, I don't know that I've seen anything like the other stuff you're talking about. Maybe some banks would do that, but I don't know that I've seen it. So
you talked about a repurchase agreement. Isn't that when you hold something and you loan it out like overnight to get funds to stay solvent?
I can't imagine that it's that.
Okay.
Just because the whole idea of all this stuff is to absolutely take away all vestiges of risk for the city in whatever they do. I mean,
Is there any situation where that would be for like general money or tax based money rather than revenue money? And maybe we would just be limited on.
again, I don't remember it being so restricted, but it's not beyond the pale possibility here. I mean, this is me looking it up, while I'm listening here and looking at other things that I'm looking at the KLM manual and stuff and trying to find that, and it's pretty deep. So, I mean, I can't tell you that there isn't some way to square the circle, but
Well, I could ask around too and do some footwork on that, and either maybe we get some answers or something a little more direct for him to investigate, or I open up a statewide can of worms on all these
Yeah, this
towns
is-
that are investing their money. So,
Yeah,
I'm
well,
down
if you,
for it.
yeah, you were saying that it might be, an improvement district. As far as I can tell, they're requiring the same thing. So it's kind of one of those things that maybe it's, better to apologize than to ask permission.
Yeah, and I mean, I know it's your money's insured, your money's secure, you're never
Why would you say
risking,
that?
you're
Yeah.
never risking. Yeah, I've heard that a few times. This
Yeah.
one, I love it.
Yeah.
You're never risking more than your initial investment. I get it.
Yeah, that's, well, what they're trying to do is also that, all these rules are for the banks. The banks really, when they get that, they have to do some special things because if it's over $250,000 in the FDIC limits, they have to pledge securities.
Yep.
Not that they
In
mind,
which
or-
they do, they pledge bonds
Yeah,
to
and
Stephanie every month.
Usually they
He
Yeah.
do.
gives you a list every month that they've pledged bonds to cover all of our money. and all
Yeah,
that
it's just
stuff.
not, it's not a big deal, but it is a little bit of, extra whammy on this thing. We're not just going, walking in the door with some money. They have to do some things. So,
Well, that's nothing that has to be done today, but think about it.
well,
Visit it, do a little thinking. I'll do a little talking, and we'll see.
not that I'm against scams, but
I said nothing about a
The
scam.
lawyer just said that on camera too.
As long as it's bringing in the dough.
I was just wanting to go have permission to go beat up the banker and see if I can get a better interest rate out of it. That would make my day great. But
I like to.
hey, we'll see. So that'll work for that. And as far as the improvements, I'll revisit that with you guys, and we'll go over that again before it's all said and done. And we'll figure out where it's going to come from and what we do and don't want to do. So zero project. You going to that one?
Yeah.
All right, I did meet with Josh and Ben Kramer about this little puppy we got going on. We talked about rural development. We talked about KDHE. We talked a little bit about CDBG. Nothing productive there, so we won't even go there. Rural development. We have basically a letter of conditions from rural development. We started that whole process. You already apply everything. There's a little thing in there about using your funding within 3 years of starting this process, which we're going to be up against. So it's kind of do it or get off the pot as far as moving forward in that direction, or we're just going to start over. I think we could start over. KDHE, there's principal loan forgiveness, highly unlikely because we don't have an order of compliance. We have a schedule of compliance, which I didn't grab that, but our permit was reissued last October. Then I immediately got more paperwork to hang on the board for 30 days for public comment on another permit, which was very strange to me. I didn't know what it was. I called the state. They had no idea why we got it. Once I finally got the permit, the difference is they included a schedule of compliance because we've been out of compliance on our treatment, stuff like that. We have to have engineering plans submitted to KDHE for approval by October of 2020, and everything has to be brought back into compliance some point in 2021 is what their schedule says. So that's the start. That's the head end of an order of compliance. Still doable, I would say. Rod Geisler, he retired. He was the chief wastewater engineer for KDHE for a lot of years. He was at Kayak with us. He answered a lot of questions right off his hip. He knew everything. He knew what people were going to say, what they were going to do for the most part. He could give you a lot of direction. At this point, I was told KDHE won't even meet with you unless there's 3 people in the room from KDHE. I don't think that's anything. I think they're just trying. There have been a lot of people with a lot of knowledge that don't work there anymore. They're trying to get everything kind of gathered up and hopefully be able to answer the questions that they're asked. Rural development, of course, can't say for sure, yes, we will give you more grant money. They said if it's available, yes. But once again, we're up against that 3-year term. If we're not actively using this or working towards it anyway, I'm sure there's probably an extension process. That money will be taken away and reallocated to somebody else. It is kind of allocated to us, their original amount or their original estimate. whether we want to move ahead with design, which Kramer's are going to come back to me. They're still talking with rural development. They're still talking with KDHE. We will have something to actually present to you. What to think about in the meantime is move ahead with design using our cash. There's about 130,000 cash in the sewer fund right now. Using some of that up, I don't think would be a bad idea. We didn't get a surge grant because we had too much money to pay for a lot of that stuff to start with. We just had too much. Our O&M costs were really non-existent at that time. We don't have to do a lot in the sewer all the time. When it hits, it hits. We got new pumps. We have stuff like that that comes up, $10,000 lift station pump. Boom. KDHE is our interim funding. That's still on the table. This, and Tom, I know Ben was trying to explain it to me and Josh. After we start drawing, say we were to just start moving ahead and we start drawing on our KDHE interim funding interest 1 year after completion or 2 years after the first draw, or am I backwards on that? I thought that they would basically start charging us interest on money that we borrowed upon drawing the money. And no big deal. I think there is a time limit now. That's why I was wanting to use our cash to start with and just hold off that interim funding until we really got hot and heavy and needed a lot more money to spend. So we're not paying interest to KDHE for nothing, which the interest rate's very favorable anyway. It's not going to amount to a lot, but if you got the cash, I think use your cash. To a certain extent, of course, you're going to hold somewhat of a reserve there, but I could, if you're interested, maybe request Kramer's bring an estimate as far as getting plans on the shelf to submit to KDHE for that first portion of the schedule of compliance, which is having plans submitted to KDHE for approval and what that cost estimate would be. And if that's feasibly absorbed by us for at least the first step, there's a lot more that goes into inspection and all that and change orders after the project's going. But that was kind of my thinking, is move forward if we can. Rural development, I mean, there'll be funding. Rural development's whole goal is to keep the user rate as low as possible. There's always that hope that maybe somewhere else in the country somebody didn't use money. That does get turned back into a pool where other districts and stuff from around the country can try to grab some of that to use on projects that they had above and beyond the funding that they had available. Not many people want to give up their money, and not many branches of rural development are going to do that, but it does happen. It's a possibility. Maybe we're due for a good one. Some luck at some point in time. And that's very layman's terms on everything I just said. But anyway, we talked about a lot of things, a lot of frustrations, a lot of different directions to go. And they'll get me some information or possibly come down and kind of go through that with you guys too, but maybe an estimate on plans on the shelf type of thing, or at least an estimate on what Kramer's it would take, cost estimate for them to complete that first schedule of compliance issue as far as having the project engineered and plans submitted for approval. And then of course it needs to be let for bids and go from there.
So before, what Kramer's did was just a PER, right? It wasn't anything.
PER, kayak, that type of stuff. I mean, that's basically all that's been built out to my knowledge. I mean, yeah, that they just kind of, whatever they completed is what we've been built for. And we have absorbed that.
But whatever I've seen at kayak has generally been PERs.
Right.
Not
Yeah,
very
no.
many people come with actual
Yeah.
completed.
Yeah. We talked about that about a year prior, if it would benefit us, and it was determined, we decided that it wouldn't really have benefited us that much more to have plans on the shelf. All they required was a PER. But yes, the only engineering they've done is preliminary. Okay. And the only recent thing they had to submit a new engineer's opinion on project cost because it has lapsed another year. So he had to submit an opinion on how much the project cost would have went up, which is a signed piece of paper and stamp that, yes, this is my professional opinion on what the project cost may be. So yeah, we went from like 4.2 to 4.5 million in a year. So
A lot of work going on.
7%.
yeah,
I mean, it's a little ridiculous.
sound about normal.
Yeah.
Well,
I wish it
I
only
can't
went
get
up
the
0.5
contract
to
to come out
0.8
like
RCD.
Yeah.
Huh?
I can't get my contractor to come out to Auburn. I got liquidated damages racking up and
Yeah.
they're sitting on their thumbs. So,
Mm.
so they got jobs out there to beat the band, I think, and that's the problem. You're competing with a lot of others.
So they've let for bids and you have a contractor, they just haven't
Yeah,
really. You're awesome.
yeah,
Well, hopefully we wouldn't end up in that boat, but
yeah.
it's possible. I mean, even though we let it for bids, I mean, you might be setting. Nobody will bid it. It'll be interesting. So anyway, 2 open-ended subjects I just talked about there. It's enough. I'll be back to ponder it. No decisions need to be made this minute, but will be more
I
information.
could
to
probably
it,
answer
so
your question. I don't know if you were talking to William Carr.
That sounds really.
Yeah, he's the KVHE guy who's the officer. He's pretty much in charge of all of the revolving fund stuff.
Okay, and he's probably who Rod
He-
was speaking
yeah, he
on
was-
behalf of that day.
Yeah, I think Rod would know him, and he knows about that interest question for sure. He's a nice enough fellow.
I'm horse, I'm done. I'm not a horse, but horse.
Okay, do you want to do that executive session now, or do you want to do it after we do our council business and mayor concerns? Were you the one that called it, Brett?
Yeah, it's not necessary.
What?
It's not necessary
It's not necessary? You
to
don't
have
want to
it
have it?
now.
Oh, okay. All right, then I'll go ahead with, you guys asked me to talk with the sheriff about a car, and I did, and they said that, so the sheriff said that they would let us use the car for a couple of weeks while we decided what we wanted to do. All we had to do is put gas in it, but that was it. That basically, we could use it for a couple of weeks, not a couple of years. Because I talked to him about, keeping track of the mileage, paying mileage on it that way, and he understood what I was saying, but he gave us a couple of weeks, and then he told me to call the highway patrol because they sell vehicles to municipalities. And so I did, and the highway patrol right now has a 2018 Charger. They have Chargers and SUVs, and they're Dodge Chargers because they're the ones that seem to do the job and have the power to do it. And right now they have a big demand on what we're going to sell this year, and they've already taken most of them gone because they're changing. The company is changing vehicles. They want to go to a V6. I don't know if it's a company or if it's highway patrol. Somebody's wants to go to V6, still a powerful engine, but not the same as V8. Highway patrol wants to check on that because they want it to be able to go from 0 to 120 like that. So anyway, they have one 2018 Charger with license sirens on it. Radio, of course, comes out. It has a push bumper on it. And they sell these vehicles when they get up to 49,500 miles. And so that's what this is. It's 2018, 49,500 miles. And,
I was here in 2008 and I'm thinking 49,000 miles.
no,
Okay.
no, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? Yeah, you could
Yeah.
just fly it from here to there.
No kidding.
And they want, for that, they want 21,000 for that. Yeah, 21,000.
21.
Yeah. I'm gonna put that comma in the wrong place there. And so, the alternative is to fix your little rust bucket that you got down there.
They
Or
don't
not
have an SUV at all available?
They're 36,000. And they didn't have one at that time, but they thought they might. I mean, there might be something that comes in. Depends on when it reaches a certain mileage then. And he suggested that he knows that it's kind of hard for us to do it that quick, but you need to make up your mind because it'll be gone. He'll hold it until I call him tomorrow. That if we, in other words, just I could let him know if we want it or not. That's what he was saying. So that guy's name is Larry with the Highway Patrol. So there you are.
Dodge Charger, you have one at a time together.
What?
Ought to have some warranty left on it. 21,000, I don't know. If you
In
could put that on a
2018, that's
6-year note or something,
Yeah.
that might be able to justify it. It's kind of out there in
Yeah.
price.
Is that the only place to get used cop cars?
they, the sheriff said that was the best place to go. And when I talked to them, they said that they were, a lot of municipalities came into them looking for it because they take good care of their vehicles and they come loaded. They have the light bars and the sirens. And then this one has a push bumper, set up.
The two Explorers the sheriff's office is using now, those were both hypo. With the light kits and all that, which they added to it. But yeah, nice vehicles and that. They literally said, like, if they hit 49.5 and they're 20 miles outside of Topeka, they'll tow it in. Like,
Yeah, because that's,
no miles over that.
yeah, that's
Or
what
they stop
they
'em.
sell it at. Yeah. Yeah, because actually he said really it's 49 and 400 and something. So your story is very close to what he said. So that's the deal. If you want practically a 2-year-old vehicle, lights and sirens. The push bumper is additive. It's a good thing. Otherwise, yeah, you can think of something else.
Does he say that we need to act tonight because he's gonna sell them all out?
The highway patrol person?
Yeah.
He had a list. We were on the top of the list. That's when I talked to him.
Hmm.
And, they needed to know. Now, I don't know if that means he has to have a check in hand in a week or two. But he said he needed a decisive decision.
Just for food for thought, if you could get a 6-year note with 4.5% interest, it's right at $4,000 a year. Annual.
How many years? You said 6?
Yeah.
To have to say, you can't do that.
No.
Yeah, you can't. You can lease it. But you can't.
Oh, okay, yeah, like we do. Yeah.
How- If you're saying,
That's what it means.
Yeah, it's terminology.
yeah, okay, well,
All right.
I just
Yeah.
want to make sure.
Strike that from it. We can lease it for, we can find somebody to do that for 4,000.
I thought you were going to
Yes,
say
those
you could
guys.
lease for 6 years. I'm like, oh, geez, you can
No, you can't.
Oh,
bond
can
out a
bond
water
it.
plant for 50 freaking years. But you can't. That's 6 years.
Yeah.
I think I'm
I don't
just
know.
kidding.
Maybe.
Shut up. So bringing people down.
Sit there and look pretty dumb.
Darkness, you can't do this, guy.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
that's-
talked to Ryan a little bit last week. He went around and served his papers, or tried to serve 2, served 1. He took a little red truck, which I'd worked on the exhaust and uncovered more problems. Headed down to Lee. He, I think, $140, got a new muffler and stuff put on it. So it's quieted back down again, which was long last because it was getting a little gassy in the cab too. But
Now you can hear everything else that's wrong with it.
yeah, yeah. And it does run rich. It's not right. The motor's never been right in it. It runs fairly rich, but I mean, it runs. He said he wasn't opposed to that. Obviously, he can't pull anybody over, but he could talk to people and whatnot and decide what you wanted to do. If you wanted to find something else and try to equip it. As far as the light package goes, it's in the truck we have. It's pretty outdated. I mean, there's nothing LED. I remember there being things in the past in the daylight. People didn't even notice it from the lights on the front of the truck as far as even pulling over for a while because they didn't know.
And the lights on this one it's a bar.
Okay, I was gonna say, does
Yeah,
it come
it's a
fully?
bar.
church
Yeah,
bar?
it's fully, yeah,
Yeah.
as far as lights, yeah, he said lights and sirens and it's a bar on the top.
So we'll have a lighting controller, which is incorporated usually with the sirens too now. It's probably got a lot of hidden stuff on it too. In the grill and in the back and stuff like that. And most of those do.
And just to tell you, and I think some of you noticed that we have a lot of speeding that goes on in town. There should be stops. And it's kind of hard to stop somebody with a little red truck that they don't know what it is. And I don't think a little red flashing bubble on the top would work. I mean, we need to get serious. So we want
It's pretty
to, I mean,
good.
it's a nice vehicle. Sounds like it'll last us a long time. And I know that we need law enforcement in this town and we need a presence. And as we can, as we move forward, and if we should actually have more than just 10 hours a week, but then that's what we went with for the time. And it would be nice if he would have something decent. But
And we
otherwise,
can afford more than 10 hours a week
sure,
out of the general fund
that's where it comes from, isn't it?
with blighted properties and other concerning matters in town.
Yeah, I think
It just
law
sounds
enforcement's
like
real important, you
That's
know, we
gonna
need
take
it,
all of
you
our
know?
budget, which was the main concern about the law enforcement before we hired it.
Well, yeah, I know, but we didn't go with the 1% sales tax for law enforcement, and so we have to try and be as frugal as possible, but we need it. We have problems in town and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do. We have blighted properties and we have tons of stuff in this town that need to be addressed.
Well, I'm sorry, but that house didn't come and kick my window in, and those
No, the
houses don't
person in it
come and
might have.
shoot my window. No. And my windows were shot out. Bam, bam. There's been vandalism done in this town, and there's speeding down the street. All you have to do is sit out there and watch it. So yeah, we need law enforcement in this town. We've always needed it. It should never have been gotten rid of in the first place. So yeah, we can afford it.
What do you think?
I think
Steph?
that's a bold
Um,
statement when you
I
have
know.
nothing to prove
Well,
it.
and if we can't afford it, then we need to figure out how we can. But I mean, if we
You
can
buy a
afford
new
it,
truck, you hire a guy, and then you come and say, "Oh, now we can't afford it. We need to figure it out." I don't think that's a
We have a
wise way
lot
to
of,
do it.
I will say, we have a lot of things. Well, just keep in mind the park payment, you have that coming up this year. Last year, our operating checking in general was depleted. We had none left. Especially if you're wanting to do houses, you're wanting to do an inspection.
I mean, the last house you
As
guys tore
quick
down, I mean,
standpoint.
her report to you was it was not advisable with her opinion on the financials at the time. And it was done anyway, which squeaked by the skin of our tail on that one as far as cash goes. But there needs to be some forward planning, and I would agree with that
Mhm.
before you just say, yep. I mean, I try to do my due diligence from revenue sides of things when I bring something to you to give you my opinion. And I always talk with Stephanie. We talk every day on stuff and toss things around on how I think it will work out. Am I always going to be right? Absolutely not. But I think I do my due diligence as far as that goes. But I don't know.
Now, for what it's
Shoot
worth,
it down.
the gas fund or the gas bond falls off after this year, so in theory, if we're allowed to keep our same cost adder, and I don't know if that's the case or not, whatever our upcharge for MCF is. So assuming we don't have a $60,000 bill to pay every year like we were accustomed to paying, in theory, that frees up. Now, I wouldn't want to sit there and burn all
Right. Now, I
entire-
would think that if you made a habit on transferring a good portion of that to general every year, the KCC is going to want to relook at the rates.
Yeah.
And I think if you market that to our infrastructure down south, it wasn't finished on CDBG funding on our above ground pipeline, stuff like that. I don't think they would take it away from us
Yeah,
and keep putting it back into infrastructure. So
yeah.
not trying to steal that for infrastructure again, but everybody likes the heat on in the winter, right?
Well, plus we haven't raised rates in like
Right.
12 years. Well, actually, that was
Yeah.
a couple of years ago when we talked that it was 12 years ago. So, I mean, if we're ever looking at a rate increase, it's probably not good to up your fund transfers every year right before that.
So the sheriff said that we could use the car by buying gas for 2 weeks.
Couple weeks.
Then you left that open-ended. Did he say a couple weeks and then no more at all? Or did he say,
That was implied, yes. He told me a couple weeks. Yeah, he said, no, we won't have to keep track of mileage because he figured it would be mostly used in town, I suppose. But he said, and I asked him twice, he said, no, that's a couple weeks only. And he said, yeah, I can let you have it for a couple weeks. Just put gas in it, and And then by then you'll have it figured out what you want to do. Well, I said, gee, thanks. And then that's when he suggested the highway patrol.
So he wasn't interested in entertaining the deal that he had with when Sam worked for us.
I guess not. He said that
That was a
they,
different sheriff.
yeah, that's
Was
true. I don't
It
know.
was.
Yeah, I'm just
Partly.
afraid the surprise to give it to you for 10 minutes.
He asked about if we had insurance or not before he volunteered that too. The old umbrella insurance thing. And
Oh, yes.
I'm glad you weren't sitting beside him.
Sam was hired
Yeah.
on at a different sheriff, so that was a deal that was already going in when the new one rolled in.
Okay.
Sam too.
Well, I don't know, I don't know, what, assuming $4,000 if you got a 6-year lease or something that resembled that, if you're looking at $4,500 for an engine, you have a wash for at least your first year. You got some salvage value in the vehicle you have, you can sell that. Possibly you can come out ahead a little bit that first year, but yeah, in the next 5 years, you would be making a payment that you're not necessarily accustomed to, so.
so you're saying that what, $4,000 a year payment?
Well, it's
Yeah,
it may be, if you're checking it out, the thing to probably do is figure out what your price is and what the financing would be.
yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
that's a
but-
guess, but
Yeah.
it's not gonna affect it too much, but.
Yeah, just.
And that's, I mean, as far as making a decision tonight, if you were looking to do a lease purchase agreement, I mean, that couldn't be for sure authorized tonight by, if you wanted to use our
Because
name.
you don't even
I mean,
have.
you would have to have
$1,000
those
and you're
papers,
gonna
just
have
like
to
we
come
have
up
on the
with
trucks
cameras
before.
and
So
stuff
as
like
far
that.
as that tonight,
What?
that's impossible.
You don't have to have cameras.
You don't have to have cameras.
Like body
Wasn't
camera?
the
or-
sheriff and another officer in here telling
He
us that
said that it was coming up, I think. And
that
he
was,
said you should be
it was gonna be the
prepared.
next year,
But they're gonna
which
do
we're
what?
definitely into it.
So once again, I talked to you about back in the day about getting a full-time officer for $36,000 and that was a wash. And so we're doing it for 10 hours a week for $16 an hour. So that's not knocking us out. I mean, we can plan this out and I asked for a work session on how to figure out where we could get the money from and I can't get that from you. And you are the main one that doesn't seem to want me to have law. And yet this community keeps expecting me to come up with it. The community wants it. It isn't me only.
There's plenty of the community that don't want it.
Really? Who would that be? That doesn't want
Total
law?
lawbreakers.
Duh.
Really? I can't think of a single person that's come to me and said, you know what? I don't think we need law. We're good.
Really? Those people don't just come out and tell you
No,
that,
they
huh?
don't tell me that. You know? They tell me the other
Wow.
thing.
They
And I'm
don't just
sorry,
come
but
and
it's
tell you that.
people like, well.
I'm sure while you're pushing your agenda, they're not going to then tell you the opposite of that because they probably don't want to be in the conversation with you.
Oh, I don't think that I have problems conversing with people. I'm sorry, it is not a problem. When they come in there, it's pretty much like at the cafe. We just chit chat and talk. And if you want them to start coming to the meetings, I've asked them to do that, but they don't get enough response from us. So do you want them to come? Is that it? You want to fill it up? I can do that. I'll
Fill
just
it up
ask
or
them to
not, I
come.
mean, the one thing to look at though is, okay, say you get a new vehicle or a next to new vehicle, you've got 10 hours a week right now, well, then you bump it to 20, well, then you want to bump it to 30, well, then you're into paying full-time, you're into paying benefits, you're into paying capers.
It's not
So,
about
I mean-
whether or not we want.
Yeah,
a
I
car.
mean, it's,
That's the new
I'm
relevant
not
point.
trying to kill anything either, but that's a lot to look at, I mean, that's
That's
what
That's
should-
a big jump from, that's called deflection. We've got somebody for $10, 10 hours a week. And there's nobody gonna increase it to 20, 30, or 40 unless you all say so. I can make suggestions and I can push this agenda, but I can't pass it. It's not me to do it. You guys have to okay it.
10 hours a week, 52 weeks a year is right at 10 grand.
Hmm.
Assuming
Okay.
20% loadings. So 15 hours a week is 15 grand.
It's kind of easy to figure, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't need cameras to prosecute a ticket. Officer, I need to take a bucket.
Yeah.
That's it.
I don't know. I say you got a guy hired. I say a vehicle makes a lot more sense than just standing on the sidewalk and wagging his finger at people. So
10 grand. Okay, and then 4,000 for 5,000 for payments.
Sure.
So that. So we're talking 15. Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta believe that we'll have enough money to do that with, but we could sure. Well, yes, no.
There's no way I'm gonna vote to buy another vehicle when we just learned about it over the last 20 minutes. I just don't think that's very wise.
You can, well, it's,
can they hold it for 2 more weeks and
I think,
get pictures and all that good stuff like you would from the? I don't know if we were serious about it to placate people.
I'm not saying you get pictures. I'm saying that's what you would have presented for us. Want to make that clear.
Yeah, I mean,
Right. I mean, yeah, I know it's a good vehicle. I don't disagree. It probably is. It's very well maintained,
Yeah.
I'm sure. And that's what
And
they
the bank would
market.
probably
but-
give you a form lease with
Yeah. But
general
does-
terms.
yeah.
I mean, this sounds
Even in
horrible,
the absence of a
but
total.
do we need
you
a
could do it.
2018 Dodge Charger?
Is that what it is?
Yeah, like
It's a
450
2000
horsepower Dodge Charger.
That changes everything.
That sucker's still got warranty on it. I mean, it's
What? Yeah, no, I get it.
got value. I
I
mean,
get
it's
As long as, yeah.
yeah.
is it
I'm
pretty?
No, I'm looking on
Oh.
Purple Wave. Yeah, there's a 17 Charger, Ottawa County, 14 hours left, of course, on Purple Wave, 11 grand. 2013 Tahoe, Ottawa County,
Mileage.
7,900. Yeah, the 7,900 Tahoe was 112,000.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
It's harder to justify stringing a note out because you're getting into what you're talking about earlier with infrastructure outliving its useful life.
The ones that we would be probably getting on Purple Wave are the ones that, like with Ottawa, they're probably on a spin with the Highway Patrol, and because they said they get in 50,000 vehicles, which I wonder if they don't pull them from all over the country. But anyway, they get these vehicles in and they turn them over after a certain amount. So I would imagine that perhaps a large town like Ottawa probably does turn them over after they've had them for a couple of years.
Kansas, it's Ottawa County.
So, I mean, I'm not opposed to
Minneapolis.
getting used vehicles. That's what I drive. I drive used vehicles. I drive my Dodge Chargers until the door falls off, literally. Billy put mine on 4 different times, you know. This one here I'm driving in it's at 230,000 miles, so Dodge is a good engine. So we could probably get something on Blue Wave if you want to. You just asked me to call, and that's what I found, and that's what was suggested to me. And the guy that I talked to at Highway Patrol said this is a deal that they do with smaller communities like ours, which maybe they consider us teeny and
Yeah, they
Ottawa
might not know
smaller.
quite how small they are. Cause yeah. I mean,
Well, they're not going to
sheriff's-
give us a special deal anyway.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
they got to
sheriff's
film.
office did really good on what they bought. I
Mhm.
completely agree with that. They got 2 really nice Explorers with less than 50,000 miles on them for equipped. I mean, they had to put radio stacks and stuff in them, but yeah.
Yeah, you got to put
absolutely
radio on
nice.
them.
I
Yeah.
have no doubt about that. It's 3 times. I have 2. Shit. No.
Well, maybe it makes more sense to shop around. I don't know. I think of the like what
We
we're doing
could
with
always
the-
get Ryan a bike and he
tobacco
could ride
or-
it around.
Absolutely.
You do an air horn.
the municipal
Especially
rates
with the
that you're
big
talking
stone
about.
trucks
I
that
think
go
they're
through
more
there.
attractive.
I mean, you could equip something. I mean, we have radios. We do. We have our digital, which is very expensive. We have digital truck radio in that contract. That's what they communicate on is the state frequency now. Of course, it's got our city radio in there and the PA and all that stuff. As far as a light kit, yeah, it's not worth much. But it's got a controller in it. It's got the console. Now that console is in a Chevy
Yeah.
pickup. so it would have to be reworked, but
Well, is the truck in pretty good shape? I mean, would it be worth putting an engine in it? You said 3,000 something, 3,800?
yeah.
About
Yeah.
45 stuck out.
With the one, yeah, with the
Okay.
warranty, the 3-year warranty, the other one had a year warranty. Yes, the bed's got a lot of rust on it too, though. I mean, it's a mid-aughts Chevy, that's what they do, they rust. I mean, I mean, I don't think, it wasn't a bad vehicle the last time I started it and drove it, but it didn't, so
Didn't somebody put something in there?
I do.
What year is it?
It was,
You said, oh, mid, okay, so like,
A 5,
okay, okay.
and it's the 5.4, 5.3, it's that weird V8 they had in
Yeah, okay.
the smaller V8.
when Mike described how the engine ran the last time, I felt like, it ran good one time, and then we start talking about getting a cop, and the next time he starts, it blows up. We have people in this town that do not want law. And they went down there and they dumped something in it and blew that engine up.
That's speculation. I didn't.
That
take
is
fuel samples,
speculation,
but we don't
But it
have-
worked, but if you got an old vehicle and you start it, they don't usually blow up.
anything.
Now the transmission leaks, because I got that.
Somebody didn't want you running the skid loader either. They didn't want you moving snow. They want to stay home from work.
Maybe that's what happened.
So does Hypo only kick vehicles out once a year? Or is that an ongoing?
It's an ongoing thing, but it's gonna be a little bit of time in between this time because there was some, I should have wrote it down. It seems like the highway patrol was gonna look for a different vendor because they liked the Dodge Chargers because they were good solid vehicles that had good powerful engines. And then the vendor was the person they're buying from was going to go to V6s and a different type of SUV that was, and so they were gonna have to think about it. So there might
Nebraska's
be a
have a
gap.
highway patrol department.
V6.
Nebraska has a highway patrol department. I'm sure their vehicles would work here also.
They run the
I'm
corn.
just saying.
Well,
They're on
and
corn oil.
now, Tim, remember when I said that they have like 50 or 60,000 vehicles that come in and they turn over? I was wondering if that wasn't from the several
Well,
state area.
The only thing
Go
I'm
to
thinking about
Crown
is,
Vic Police Interceptor for $600.
Stephanie, do you know if we have
I know
badges?
that car. We don't have stinking badges.
Because
He,
when I spoke with Ryan today, he told me that he needs a badge and a name tag.
oh, yeah.
Well, we
Told
should
me
have
that
all
when
of that unless he
And
took
he
it
said
with
he
him when he
was
left.
more than comfortable driving the little blue truck,
Red.
little red
Um,
truck.
I'll have to look for a badge. There's a
Thank you.
prosecuting attorney badge that I found.
Oh,
But
Oh.
Todd hasn't been wearing this the entire
Yeah, you will be now.
Yeah.
I'd like to
I have
have
it
it.
for years.
Do I have to wear anything else?
He's been in, he's looked through stuff, and I know he got some uniforms.
wow.
I'll look into that for badge.
Did you find a vest for him? You don't want to-
I hope it's a big badge.
Out here forever.
Well, that's what I would think. Does he need a City of Eskridge badge?
No,
Oh,
but
you're
he-
talking about a City of Eskridge, yeah.
He was the city Eskridge marshal. I mean,
He doesn't have it.
police,
So
there's gonna be
actually,
a
that should
generic.
still be
one.
around
Yeah.
unless,
We had
with him when he
one.
left.
We could order one.
You can have-
I don't think we need permission from
The lawbreakers.
You don't think we have any here?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny.
No, I said I bet the lawbreakers
Right
stole all
here.
the badges. I bet that's what happened.
Just big.
Okay, make fun of it. You're really hilarious.
Dolly, one other source you might consider for a vehicle is Topeka Police Department. They keep theirs a lot longer than the highway patrol. You might be able to get an older vehicle that's still quite serviceable for the city at a lower price.
Okay.
That would be set up for law enforcement.
It's not like we're gonna rack up a whole lot of miles on it either way.
Yeah, but
And when we hired Ryan, we agreed he was gonna do it here and at the lake and that we would split the costs. So I would imagine that we could split the vehicle cost out of the lake fund too and not just put the strain on the general fund. Correct.
as long as you adhere to keeping that split, pretty
Because
well
I don't see a
defined.
whole lot of patrolling to be done. out
Well, I
on
was
the
gonna
lake.
say, like, what?
I would say during the
Oh,
summer.
really?
Just on, there's like 3 weekends a year where you need them over at the beach side.
It's really even more than that during the summer, but
Yeah, a little bit.
okay.
North side.
Just be more
We should have said that before we hired Brian, because we had said and discussed and agreed upon.
I don't
The
remember
split.
any of that talk with them patrolling out there at the lake, so.
Yeah, we did. We
Okay.
did too, yeah.
Was it dock related?
No,
No.
No,
Okay.
no, I mean, there's times when the law has to go out there because
there's people
campers
that
are
speed
drunk
around that
and,
lake all the time.
and,
They're speeding
No.
everywhere.
It's not on the North Shore though, in the big town.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Those are all township roads.
no, the campsite sometimes needs law enforcement. They get called down.
I'm not saying they don't.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the percentage is gonna be low.
But as far as
compared to
patrolling
town.
goes, he could also go on the lake and patrol. So that's where we could share.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
I can get behind that.
All right. So this went nowhere. I will,
No, I don't agree. I
Oh,
think
what?
we made a lot of progress with that.
oh, okay.
I'm not gonna, I agree with Brett that I don't like being handed a bill for $20,000 and saying the deadline's tomorrow, we need to act now.
Yeah.
Nope, I'm gonna say no. from
Well,
now on.
and they didn't do that on purpose.
I know.
It's just that this all moved so fast, everybody swooped in and took their orders right away.
Well, this vehicle might be a little more than we actually need. I mean, it's-
But I do
that's
think
a pretty
that,
solid
we should
deal.
open the, I think that we should start looking. I don't want to be a town without law. And I think most people don't want to be a town without law, but we gotta be able to afford it.
Okay. So we will look on Blue Wave and I will call the police department and do that. Give them a call.
Blue truck, purple. Right.
Blue truck,
Red
blue
truck,
wave.
purple wave.
Joe asked me the other day if that red truck was still down there.
Sure.
Yeah,
Purple Wave, Speaker.
Yeah, it had a lot of motor.
Kid that drives no cop car to our school.
Yeah.
That thing runs like a top.
But it's running though.
Bought it from
I drove it from
one of the Indian tribes up north.
here to there.
That's not my fight.
Okay. And do we have any other well, Tim, you had some things.
I do. I wanted to address the, I don't remember what the correct term is for it, the maternity leave, policy.
Want to develop one, you mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
I contacted the Kansas League of Municipalities and I did a search for towns that have 1,000 people or less, mayor, council,
Yeah.
run, class 3 city. And I got quite a list of towns and I started calling. And it's almost 100% unanimous. What everybody does, they offer the 6 weeks off, use your sick time, your vacation time, and then non-paid time if you run out of that.
Out of the 6 weeks.
Yes.
Wait a
So
minute,
they
you
don't
saying
do
that?
12 weeks, they do 6.
I'm just telling you what everybody has told me.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
FMLA, now I got this from the League of Municipalities. I left a message with an attorney who left me quite a lengthy email. And about the only thing that he added, he said that what's common, not mandated, but what's common, is the same 6 weeks. You use your sick, vacation, non-paid. 6 weeks more if a doctor like a cesarean or, if there's other complications. If a doctor says you need more time. FMLA does not apply for businesses that have less than 50 employees.
And it doesn't apply to cities.
I didn't
Oh, I didn't know
that, but I guess it was irrelevant.
Yeah, you called the league, that's why you don't know.
Why I still have his address.
You're paying him to be here. You can smack him if
I
you
already
want.
written down 2 of his quotes here tonight, so we got them on
Yeah.
camera. Better to beg forgiveness than ask permission. Todd Luckman.
That's right.
Mhm.
2/10 of 2020. But anyway, I got a lot of responses. Some of them I just left messages and they sent me emails, so I was sorting through them. And it's almost unanimous. And then just out of curiosity, I asked some other questions. like short-term disability, I don't even know what we offer. I didn't look it up. Do we offer any?
Blue Cross Blue Shield does, but
They
it's
do,
too
not employee
late.
sponsored, employer
Right.
sponsored though.
There's only one
Open enrollment.
one city that I spoke with where they actually provide short-term disability for their employees. Everybody else offers a dollar amount that's usually equal to the single employee insurance plan. And then anything above that the employees purchase for spouse or family plan is all on the employee. All the rest of that is 100% on the employee, including the short-term disability. So we are already more generous than by far, most of the cities that I called. That's what I have found.
With the 6 weeks.
We don't
Well,
have
I'm talking
any.
about with the insurance.
I was gonna
with
say
our
there's
insurance.
nothing on. So
I was gonna say that.
A lot of the towns
Yeah.
didn't have anything. And they said, well, I imagine we would do what everybody else does. And then some people would email me back and tell me, well, I've called this place and this place. And they say, and they came back with the same thing, 6 weeks, sick time, vacation time, non-paid, up to the full 6 weeks, unless the doctor's note. And that's almost unanimously what everybody does.
Okay. I guess the beauty of it is we can decide what we want to do.
Stephanie, what do
It's
you
just a
want?
policy.
I don't want you putting any of that guy.
I said last time when they asked for it. So,
Don't
Yeah,
put her on the spot.
I mean,
yeah, we'll talk about it later. Okay. Well, I know that when we talked with her the last time, that we talked about how long she wanted to go and that she wanted to maybe have a link up at home so she could be available to whoever was working for her if they got into a problem or if they could help that way. So we're gonna be hiring, we'll need somebody to cover for you. So we
Yeah,
need
for
to
sure.
look at hiring a part-time help that could help her for at least a couple months, sounds like. And so as far as link, did Chris have an idea of what the cost or what that would be, or would it just be?
yeah, well, it'd just be laptop would be the cost of that.
And then he would set up a VPN. to
Right.
go, Right.
Right, so there would be a minimal cost there for whatever his time would be, but he said it would take hardly any time to set up, so.
Okay, all right.
Which, and I don't know, I wasn't here after that and what your guys' feeling on that was, but my opinion, that's kind of worth its weight in gold. I mean, to a small city or any small business, somebody that controls that much of the aspect of your business to even be offered the opportunity to come in and, you know, close out reports, do this and keep all that, because you're not going to train someone to just do everything.
They would have to be
Yeah.
here a lot
Payroll
longer
and
than.
stuff
Yeah,
like
with
that,
all the
and
training that you've
all
had.
that
Yeah.
just
That's for
boom, overnight. So I don't know what the feelings were, and it doesn't matter, but that's my opinion on that. That side of the office has gotten exponentially wonderful in the last 2-3 years, and things go very smoothly with all of my dealings in there. So I just, that's really worth a lot. And I know there might have been some concerns about legality on that as far as working when you're being allowed time, but I think even if there was an agreement put in place for any legal issues that may arise on any weird HR nightmare, I don't think there'd be an issue with her forfeiting that to offer those services to you guys.
No, usually, I don't.
Okay, that's Thursday. Okay. I will talk with her some more. Yeah, I think I'd rather talk to you first before I say anything more in the council, you know.
Okay.
On what your expectations would like to be.
Okay.
All right.
Are we trying to decide something here? Or are we just talking about?
We were Kim was giving us information. Oh, you weren't here last week.
That's what's that's okay. Well, I know. I already know. Yeah, I already know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
he was
We'll
bringing us
sum it up. We don't
information.
have a plan,
Well,
policy.
Yeah.
So I called some places to find out what other places' policies were. because what they were talking about in here is giving 6 weeks off paid. So I wanted to find out what's normal, because I had no idea. And,
And I can't remember exactly verbatim, and I'm not gonna try to repeat anything that Annie said. However, I was really liking what she was throwing out. So
She said 6 weeks paid, 6 weeks at 50% option.
I had emailed some cities, Brad, and basically the consensus there was we don't really have anything in place, but no one has ever really taken maternity leave.
That's what I was gonna
Which is
ask him,
what
if any of those cities
the
had
thing
actually
was.
sent anyone there.
the emails that I got, and I can
See,
send
we
those
haven't had
to
to
you.
exercise this, but this is what we have on our
Right.
handbook.
So then
So
I went
here's
to
what
the
we have.
state, and then the state's policy is 6 weeks paid leave. So that was kind of my first starting point, and that's kind of what I had.
But we can do
asked.
anything we want. We don't have to go by the state, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
right,
Okay.
right.
we can do what we want.
To quote the mayor, we need to be as frugal as possible.
No,
I've been
that
waiting
was
all-
him,
I've been waiting for
darling.
a while to throw that out there.
If I remember right,
That
I
was you
was
that said
being-
that.
I
It
was-
says Mayor Dolly
yeah.
Mercer right underneath.
But did you put the smirk in there?
No, you were serious when you told Britt that.
I am
So
serious
so
with
when you
that.
put you on the spot, what?
But I think we
did you
can
ask for
afford it.
something?
And I am
And
frugal.
just to kind of get the ball
No, you're-
rolling. And,
You're
No,
At
no,
times.
did you have some specific parameters that you were
What's
looking
not,
for?
or not?
I mean, I said the 6 weeks paid, like what the state does
Yeah.
would be nice.
And
I think
I-
that was the
And,
extent of her request.
Yeah.
yeah, and then I just kind of put it in your guys' court and said, think about it.
And
The Dodge
no-
Charger.
none of my homework has anything to do with you, Stephanie. I want you to
No, I
understand that.
understand.
Because if we're setting a policy, this isn't a policy that's gonna affect just her.
Yeah.
It might affect Mike if his wife gets pregnant tomorrow. He
Jesus,
wants
thank
to.
God.
But the point is,
About killed him there.
the point is, let's say we get another employee, and even as a male, because, we're gonna have to offer it to them. That's the way of the world now.
I understand
it's
that.
not.
And are we gonna want to, it's gonna be,
Yeah, better at.
you see it coming. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't see that on certain stages anymore, do
No,
you?
you don't.
But I thought that stuff kind of popped up in large corporations and stuff like that, or if you have 50 employees or more kind of thing.
Well, I'm just
But I
saying, if
like
we're gonna
the
set a
six-
policy, I
And
think
I
that we need to
see,
be
and I
thinking
wasn't
all
even
encompassing.
asking
It has,
that.
but-
I get that. I wasn't even
It's
asking
probably
that.
coming.
Like I talked to Mike today, and I even said, if I'm like gonna have kids in the future, I'm going to not ask for the same thing, and I will plan. This wasn't, anyways. And
Was.
maybe get on. It was a long time in the making, and so yeah, I would have been nice to get on short-term disability. So I mean, this is kind of like a thing that just
Something else that I forgot to mention also when I was calling these other places, they also said that they would allow to bring the child in.
Hmm.
So that's,
That's good
and I
because
don't see,
we'd
I
already
don't think
kind of,
there's anybody here
everybody's
that
happy
would have
about
any
that.
issues.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
So
wasn't expecting you guys to
unless you're
like,
trying
write
to
it in
drive
the
a skid
handbook
load or
and like
pushing
that's the
snow
end
with your
all
baby
be all
on your
for
lap.
It's a lot easier when they're a baby because they fit behind that bar. When they get bigger, they just
You wear that little front backpack thing you put them in.
Playpens work really
Have the
well.
latch system on the.
Marcia,
back
did you
over
want-
there?
I'm just gonna say, I mean, I know I'm old,
Nah,
like Stephanie's age now, but 6 weeks paid. Anything after that, even with the state and with the phone company at that time, you could take off whatever you wanted without pay.
Mhm.
And then your net credited service date was adjusted accordingly. So if you took 3 months off or 6 weeks and then you took time off, then when you came back, your net credited service date adjusted. So then your seniority dropped, your vacation, your pay, all that sort of stuff is adjusted. But they allowed, you did not lose your job. Your job was there. It wasn't necessarily the same job when you came back. You could have a job, but not that job.
I've heard those
So
stories
there's,
too.
everybody does it different, and FMLA for other people is like you say, 50. I mean, there was thousands of employees, so they could do that. The little ones didn't. And I worked at places before that and places after that, and none of
so a
them
big company
offered
like that would give somebody that time off, but they wouldn't necessarily come back to the same job. In other
You're
words,
just
you're
guaranteed
punished
a
for
job.
having a baby.
I think the lowest you guys could
It
come up
just-
to
it
would
just-
be
it
deputy
bothers me.
clerk. I think
You
it's
can
the
take
same
his
duties.
Yeah, you could have
No,
my
I'm
job.
good. I'm
You
good.
cannot leave, you cannot go anywhere during that 6 weeks.
Well, I work anywhere else.
Get letters.
No, you cannot leave the state, you cannot go anywhere when you're on that disability, you're there where they know where you are. Cause I made that mistake.
You can't
Where
leave the
was?
state?
I took my first baby and went and visited family in Louisiana, and when I got back, everybody was chewing my butt, and I had to beg them to shut their mouth, so I didn't lose my disability for being
Oh my
gone.
gosh.
When I had my second one, I made sure I stayed home.
You
That's
need to
crazy.
go to Europe and get a job. They're really nice to ladies over there. I don't know if you could do that far away. He probably.
They're really
could.
nice
Just
to
was
everybody.
saying
They have
Yeah,
like
I don't
4-day
think-
work weeks.
I don't think Brock is gonna make it.
Socialist.
that. Probably not. I don't think we want
Lawyers.
I don't know.
I mean, 6 weeks is not.
Even lawyers will always
Extra
do that.
day, yeah, an extra day.
6 weeks is not.
So if we gave her a
Good to know.
6-week paid leave and then you took more time off and used your, sick leave and stuff,
Mhm.
then that way you wouldn't go broke while you're taking care of the baby.
It's, yeah, falls in your guys' court.
So that's what we're gonna talk about. We're gonna talk about that and then
No,
come
no,
back.
baby, she going broke.
Oh,
She go broke.
I realize, yeah.
Braces are expensive.
And it doesn't stop with the babies. You got the grandchildren coming up too.
Oh, coming up.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm just warning you.
I mean, none of it yet.
Money
But
doesn't
it's great.
stop.
Oh my
All right, and Tim, was there anything else? Then
Oh, that's
give
it.
us some good basis here to thank you very
Yeah.
much. Good boy.
Move to adjourn.
One more, whoa. I sent you a text, Brett, about an alley being blocked down there by your dad's place. And does he have a trailer or anything sitting in an alley? If we have alleys behind homes, are the alleys supposed to be open so that the fire trucks and stuff get back and forth? Do we have any rules about that?
On an alley, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Reasonably, yeah.
all right,
Recently.
okay. All right, that's
You should
what I
probably
needed
discuss
to
it
know.
with him. That's what I
Well, I
suggest.
would. Well, I just was wondering if you knew
But
if
you have the same
someone.
last name.
Huh? Well, that'd be nice. Sure. Okay, I can do that. I usually see him in the morning anyway.
Good luck.
No, it won't be a problem, you know, we have law enforcement now.
Oh, motion on the floor.
Did we have a
And a
second?
We did.
Bye.
No, we
Oh, we gotta vote. I guess I can't vote that out, can I? All in favor?
Okay.
Adjourn. 8:22.
What college? We got grandkids working out, we gotta figure out college.
She's
Good
got a-
kindergarten first.
You go to a college that has a rodeo.
Kindergarten, I think I do have figured out, so.
Start with giving birth.
Huh?
I said, let's start with giving birth.
Oh,
Start there.
this is
As long as it's not any
less-
K-staters, I'll tell you what.
I know, and you don't have your room sandals on.
I don't know.
And I have one that lives really close to me and they're paying, just right down the street from